Yes, so we are 48 hours away from what I would call the most anticipated election in the Caribbean in 2025, and that is the general election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we see Ralph Gonsalves, Vincy World Boss himself, going up against the opposition leader Friday. And this would be uncharted territory for any leader, not only in the Caribbean, but worldwide. There's not many leaders across the world in any democracy that can say they would have spent 30 years as the leader of a country. And that is the territory that we're seeing Ralph Gonsalves heading into this election. If he wins this election, he's going to be one of few prime ministers or president to have served for 30 years. But now we're seeing things heating up, and we're seeing the Jamaican government getting involved in this election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And yesterday I saw the People's National Party, what he called himself, the number one PMP puppet, got information about this, that the Jamaican government sent a representative in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to campaign with the opposition party. And Andre Stevens himself, the number one People's National Party puppet, lost it. And this is what happened yesterday.
Here comes Andrew holding his sweetheart and her team, who has the responsibility of steering the education portfolio, leave Jamaica to go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines on taxpayers' money. On taxpayers' money, Jamaica. On taxpayers' money. On taxpayers' money, Jamaica. She left Jamaica to go to St. Vincent to go meddle in the affairs of another democracy. She gone to meddle in the affairs of another democracy. She gone to meddle in the affairs trying to take out Ralph Gonsalves as Prime Minister of St. Vincent. Ralph Gonsalves, who has been a very good friend to Jamaica. This concubine, this Jezebel, and Jezebel, leave Jamaica, gone to meddle in the affairs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines election.
So one thing I must say, I don't know why, I cannot understand why Andre is so emotionally invested in the People's National Party the way it is. Like, it just mind-boggling to me. This man looked like he was about to burst a blood vessel. That is how emotionally invested he is in the People's National Party. And the reason why it is so surprising is because just last week we saw him like almost like emotional, saying that he wished that the opposition leader Mark Golin would acknowledge his work and give him a strength. And all this time I thought that he was like a paid puppet. So for him to be out there doing this work for free and so emotionally invested, it is just so confusing, because as I said, like every time you see this man, he's screaming on the top of his voice, and I don't know, be careful, you might burst a blood vessel. But let me break this down now. So first of all, I feel like I'm going to have to be the garbage collector in what is going on in Jamaica now, because a lot of people come out and they spew a lot of garbage, and I just feel like I have to come and clean up after. Because look, this thing about, let me just say this first, I do not believe that prime ministers in the Caribbean should be going across to different islands and to participate in the election. I think that, to me, that is election interference. And this is something that I've been saying for the entire year, for the entire 2025. I have been out there saying this. I do not believe that it's appropriate for one leader or one party to leave their island and to go and to campaign on behalf of another government. So let's put that out there first. So Andre Stevens is a big hypocrite, like one of the biggest hypocrites you can find. And the thing is, like, to be a hypocrite and not being paid, it just don't look good. Because Andre Stevens, as I said, the number one People's National Party influencer, aka puppet, has been around the entire year, and Andre Stevens would have known that Ralph Gonsalves, yes, the same Ralph Gonsalves that Andre Stevens in that video almost burst a blood vessel and say, look, Ralph Gonsalves is a friend to Jamaica, Ralph Gonsalves a democracy, and why is the government of Jamaica involved in the election trying to get Ralph Gonsalves out of office. This same Andre knew that Ralph Gonsalves was in Jamaica in the midst of the election campaigning for Mark Golin and the opposition party of Jamaica.
In solidarity with your leader, Comrade Mark. Time come.
Comrade Chairman, the President of the People's National Party, Mark Golin, my friend and brother and comrade, Isat Buchanan, and all our friends and comrades and warriors present here.
Yes, people, so that was Ralph Gonsalves, aka Vincy World Boss, the Prime Minister, the sitting Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in Jamaica a few months before the general election, the keynote speaker at one of the People's National Party event. And you would think that Andre would have enough sense to say, you know what, I cannot come out and beat the government too bad because the opposition leader was the first person to engage in this type of event. And it would look so hypocritical to do that. But the hypocrite that these people are, like, he came out there very confident, screaming on the top of his voice about meddling in other people's election and messing with other democracy. And you would think that they would not have engaged in something like this to come out so strong and talking about what the government is doing. And as I said, I am someone that have been speaking out about this for the entire 2025, and I'm not a hypocrite, so I'm not going to come and say the Jamaica Labour Party have a right to go in St. Vincent and to be a part of the election. But I understand, and this is one of the reasons why I did not think it was appropriate, because when all of the other leaders from CARICOM came to Jamaica the other day, Ralph Gonsalves was noticeably missing, and we saw the tension between the Prime Minister of Jamaica and Ralph, even when he came to Jamaica for the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. And that is the reason why I don't believe that Caribbean leaders should go across borders and participate in other elections. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, came out with a strong statement over the weekend about this same thing, about politicians in the Caribbean going across, crisscrossing all over the Caribbean and involved in their political activities. And she said, like, look, that is going to destroy CARICOM. And that was because Ralph Gonsalves was trying to insinuate that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was involved in their election. That is how crazy this thing is getting. So I don't believe, I'm not going to sit here and say that, look, this is okay, this should not be happening. But I believe that the reason why the Jamaica Labour Party is involved in this, and I believe that probably the Prime Minister wanted to go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but because of the hurricane and because of the G20, then he did have to send someone else. But I believe that the Prime Minister, the tension between the Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is real. And this is why I don't believe in that crisscrossing in terms of meddling in other people's election. And then we saw Rhoda Mae Crawford in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And in that rant, we saw Andre going off again about her using taxpayers' money, Jamaican taxpayers' money, to fly to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to be involved in their politics. And I think Andre knows better than that. But again, putting out all this garbage out there, because you know, when you are invited, Rhoda is a guest in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, invited by the opposition leader, Mr. Friday, and everything is covered from airfare to accommodation. Everything while she is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines was covered by the opposition. The same way that when Ralph Gonsalves was in Jamaica, Mark Golin would have to cover whatever expenses for Ralph Gonsalves to be in Jamaica. So let's just get that out of the way. But when you saw him screaming on top of his voice, like, the taxpayer money, like people with no type of knowledge about politics and people that are uninformed, uneducated to this process, they are going to eat up all that garbage. But nothing could be further from the truth. Like, her trip was all paid. Her trip was covered by the opposition party because this was an invitation for her to come to St. Vincent, to go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think the strategy is clear. Obviously, the NDP in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have been following this closely. And from what I'm seeing, it's obvious that the NDP, they have the young vote, the young people, the college people, the university, the college vote. They have that young vote. And I think that Rhoda went there as someone that is involved in education, and she went on that, like, a school tour, college tour I saw in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that is the strategy. And one thing I would say to the People's National Party, Mark Golin, if Ralph Gonsalves lose this election, if Ralph Gonsalves ever lose this election, that would not be good for the People's National Party, because that right there would show the power of the government of Jamaica. That would show the power of Dr. Andrew Holness himself, if, because of his influence in the St. Vincent and the Grenadines election, if Ralph Gonsalves was to ever lose that election, that would be lights out for the People's National Party. Because we saw, as I said, I've been following this election, and we saw all the big guns went to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We saw the Vibes Cartel, we saw Sprague Benz, we saw Beanie Man. All of the big PMP artists went to St. Vincent and the Grenadines to endorse Ralph Gonsalves. So if with all that endorsement in St. Vincent and the Grenadines by the big powerhouse PMP dancehall artists that went there to endorse him, if with all of that and just Rhoda going there and just know that the Prime Minister of Jamaica endorsed the opposition leader, if Ralph Gonsalves should ever lose, that would send a power shift across the Caribbean that, look, the Prime Minister of Jamaica is the big man in the Caribbean, because we know that Mia Mottley is the most loved Prime Minister in the region. But what we have seen with the Prime Minister of Jamaica and the respect that he's getting on the international level for such a young leader to be a 4-time Prime Minister and one of the top generals in the Caribbean, if his influence on the Vinci election caused Ralph Gonsalves to lose, as I said, that would be lights out. So guys, sound off in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this one. Do you think it is appropriate for the Jamaican government to be involved in the election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And as I said, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, he was the first one that came to Jamaica and campaigned on behalf of the People's National Party. So do you think it's fair to fight fire with fire now, and that the Jamaica Labour Party, they have a right to go and participate in that election because Ralph Gonsalves was the first one to do it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. And remember, peace. I'm out.